Greetings. The Adrian Dominican Sisters welcome you to another presentation of a sister story. Today we're going to have a conversation with our Sister Delores DeBets, formerly known as, what was your religious name?
Frederick Thomas.
Frederick Thomas. Some of you may know her as that. Since then, she's gone back to her baptismal name. Now, Dolores is at this time residing in St. Clair Shores, Michigan, but she has a long story to tell us about in the many places that she has been in ministry and about her family. So, Dolores, thank you for saying yes. And one thing that we're always interested in is, before you became a nun, you had a family and you grew up on the east side of Detroit. So we need to know a little bit about your upbringing, your family, your parents, your siblings. What was life like in the DeBets household, and the truth about and then maybe you could even tell us a funny story at one point that your family tells about you. Do you have anything like that?
Well, I have a lot of those, but maybe they'd have to be censored.
All right, well, listen, let's just start back in the east side of Detroit when you were in your early life.
Okay. I was born and raised on the east side of Detroit, in Grosse Pointe Park. I was born into beautiful parents, two beautiful people. My mom was Irish through and through. My father, Belgian American. And we did settle in a Belgian American community.
Oh.
Grosse Pointe was known for the place for the immigrants to come and settle. They were sod farmers and vegetable growers. And so we were kind of raised in that atmosphere. We loved...
My perception of that part of town, Grosse Pointe, is it was a place for the wealthy.
Oh, well, we had two groups. It was the poor and the wealthy. But we attended St. Ambrose School, high school and grade school. And we had a camaraderie in that school that was like no other. Oh. Our sisters, I really believe, were very instrumental in that. They were very much a part of the community. They walked the streets at night. They integrated themselves much earlier than we did in other parishes that I had been in. And they would stop and visit with the people that sat out on their porches at night. So we were very familiar with the sisters and comfortable with them.
I'm glad you clarified the fact that they walked the streets at night. That was to meet the families. So you really had 12 years of Adrian Dominican Sisters.
Yes. Well, not only that, but also grew up in a neighborhood where many of the Adrians came from. Clement Allard, Miriam Croha, Kathy Gaynor, I could go on and on, Dorothy Tilk.
Right.
And Marisha and Claire O'Connor.
Right.
They were all within blocks of each other and their families. So we knew one another. The community was very, very close. And I remember it distinctly because you knew that there was always someone who was going to be able to help. And that was one thing that I know I grew up learning that. My mother would look out the window and see a neighbor and she'd say, Mrs. So-and-so's getting her groceries, go help her. Mm-hmm. And Mr. So-and-so's cutting his grass, go offer to help. And there were 7 of us. We had 5 girls and 2 boys in the family. Wow. All of them are deceased but one. My sister Joanne and I are the only 2 left of the family. My dad died very young. He was only 52 years old. And my mother had never worked out of the home. So that was a real difficult time. And my sister Joanne moved back in with my mother to take care of her. And so I think the sense of giving and receiving was very much a part of our childhood. When someone needed help, there was always a neighbor that was first there to assist in any way they could. Mm-hmm. And I remember distinctly walking as a child with my mother up and down the block when there was a death in the area. They would collect for flowers And I remember the neighbors, sometimes it was just a handful of change, but there was always flowers sent to the home. And my mother was a great cook. She would always prepare some type of a dish, a pie or a cake or some type of meal to take to the family.
So that's where you learned your gift of hospitality and generosity and giving to others. I mean, that very same way, the cooking and.
Yeah, it definitely came from my mom. Mm-hmm. But my dad also was very much a part of the Belgian community. We had pigeons in our garage, and the pigeons were to the Belgian community like steak.
Like what?
We raced pigeons.
Okay.
We had the birds in the yard, and every Saturday morning we took the birds up to the local bar, and the pigeons were taken out of the Grosse Pointe area and let go, and they were banded. And so they were homing pigeons. So the first pigeons that arrived home, you took the pigeons up to the bar, and in a sense, it was like horse racing. They were actually. So I came into the betting community very, very young. But those pigeons were gold to us because there was big money in those days.
Oh, really?
That were bet on the pigeons. But you would see we call them buffaloes, the Belgians. The old buffaloes would be out in front watching the sky for their pigeons to come home to roost. See, that when they would let go of them up north or wherever they took them, the first ones home were the winners. That was big money. So that was always a celebration when our pigeons roosted quickly. Mm-hmm. So Belgium history was very much a part of us. My parents, like the beer barrel polka, my parents rolled up the rug. They had dances in our home, in our living room for the neighbors. They would come. That was frequent when we were growing up, that the neighbors would dance at each other's homes. Someone would play the accordion,
yeah,
guitar or something. And it was just people brought snacks and they just enjoyed being together. They sat on their porches at night. We were very much a part of community. And if people watched out for us, there was absolutely no hesitation, for them to, if we were corrected in school, my mother knew before I got home.
Right. So you came from a large family. What was home life like with all those kids?
Well, we lived in a flat with 2 bedrooms. Yeah. Then my grandmother was a very shrewd businesswoman. She came over from Belgium with 2 children. Her husband had died young. And she worked herself up cleaning houses to actually be able to purchase a bar. Well, bars, you'll know, in our history are a big part of our life. And she had a bar on Jefferson Avenue, and she tended bar, and that's how she raised her children.
Wow.
And she ended up to be a very, very wealthy woman. And when times were hard, which was when I grew up in the, early 40s. Yeah. She was known to be a realtor in Grosse Pointe. She bought up many homes during the wartime, and she was able to help people to get back on their feet. And that was very much a part of her living. People went to her. She was a shrewd businesswoman. And my grandmother was crippled very young with problems with her legs, and she was in a wheelchair. Lived with my one and only uncle. I had just one uncle on my dad's side, and they lived on the next street to us. But I always remember going over there to take care of Grandma. We would sit with her when my aunt went shopping, and she would tell us all about different families that were having hard times. And she would sensitize us to the needs of others, that we were always more blessed. We were more fortunate than many. And I think that was so much a part of my upbringing. Mm-hmm. And I think that's how I dealt in ministry, that mm-hmm. there was always a need to be met. And I think I lived by that, to be a doer and not just a hearer of the word.
Right. How did you make a decision about entering the convent? I can understand why you entered the Adrians.
The Adrians were very much a part of our life. I loved the nuns. And our nuns were very good to us. They integrated themselves into the community. After getting into the community, I heard stories that were quite the contrary from our women. But
do not repeat those now.
Right, and they never shared that with the people in the parish. Like after we were a well-known football team on the east side, and when after all the football games, the school bus would come back with us, and we would go right to the convent. The sisters all came out. If it was 11, 12 o'clock, they would come out to meet the bus and be participants in the excitement of the game. And so I think that integration helped us to get to know the nuns a lot, in a lot, ways that many other people didn't have. We had some pretty tough teachers. They were hard on us, but they had a sense of the needs of the kids. They spent time with us. You never felt like you were, a bother to them. They always had time to listen, but we were very hard to handle. We were a tight community of kids, and if you hurt one, you hurt them all. So,
is there one sister or couple in particular that had a great influence on you?
I would say Miriam Catherine Crowhall.
Yes.
And Larry, her brother, was the family doctor for most of us, brought most of us into the world.
That's right.
That we remember them very, very much. Gilbert, Ruth Grace.
Right.
Ruth came to be our principal. The school was pretty much out of control at one point. And we had a Belgian pastor who was very hard on the sisters. You knew if you were Belgian, you were kind of special to him. Father Van Antwerp.
Oh, yes.
And whenever I was in trouble, which was many times, I would get sent home.
What were you in? Stop. What got you in trouble? What did you do that you were in trouble?
Well, what I'm probably still doing, controversial things, to say the wrong thing or not to go along with something.
Okay.
For instance, our freshman class was so out of control that they separated us to all girls to one teacher and all boys to the other. And school was like a place to have fun. And we really did have fun. It was not a place to study. I often went home during the school day. If I wanted to go home, I just lived down the block. I would put a bottle top in the door and come back at the next class or do whatever. So when Sister Gilbert came, she really put us under control. And I think I admired that so much in her. It wasn't, she understood the conditions. She could be kind to us, but she knew that she was going to put that school in a different direction. And so I look back on all those things. I think they were all learning lessons for us, even as adults, because when I was missioned back to Detroit, I taught at St. Angela's, and I remember the first meeting with the parents and introducing myself. And as soon as I said that I was from St. Ambrose, 4 of the men and the fathers of the children I was going to teach jumped up and went into the fight song for the school. And St. Ambrose, unto you we come, and so on.
Right.
So there's that same thing still exists in the community.
That's wonderful.
Lifelong friends, that we fell on hard times. We lived in a 2-family flat. My mom and dad raised all of us in that home, but there was no such thing as mine. It was ours. And my parents had a beautiful way of integrating that into us. And they didn't put up with much. They were tough on us, but we knew that love was there no matter what the cost. But we felt that from neighbors too.
Okay, so you decided to enter, and you entered right after high school.
Right. No, I entered in 11th grade.
Oh, 11th grade.
Yeah, I did. I didn't go into my senior year.
So you didn't get to go to the senior prom or ring day or?
Well, I had been to several proms in junior year.
Oh, that's good.
Well, we had Rose and Torch Night. I don't know if
you're right.
Yeah. Well, we went to Rose and Torch Night with our bathing suits on under our cap and gowns. So needless to say, our prom was rocky after that experience. But then we also had a party in Belle Isle, the senior class or the junior class at that time with the seniors. And we flooded the Belle Isle fountain with soap suds. So our prom was canceled.
Okay, maybe we should now move into, you're going to enter the convent. So you entered the convent. Oh, okay, let's start there now.
Okay. I entered in June of 59.
59.
I'm a part of the infamous Holy Cross crowd. It was kind of tumultuous times for us with Sister Margaret Phillip at the time was not well.
Okay.
And we did have sisters come in and assist with us as postulants. We were a large crowd. In fact, the first night that we arrived, they really weren't prepared in the sense of the numbers. And
how many were in your crowd that first night?
We entered with 101.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a very large crowd at the time. So we got used to like shifting, meals and that type of thing. But we have a very nice crowd. I'm not into big crowd things. That's not my thing, but a nice group. And then when we moved from the postulate into the novitiate, I love Sister Patrick Jerome. She was a beautiful woman. And I think that's really where I started, taking life serious about how religious life was to be lived.
Okay. Thank goodness.
Yeah. Well,
okay, so then you spent a lot of time in Chicago.
Right. Yeah, my heart is still there. I love Chicago. Yeah, I was sent to
well, that's good. We're going to have our next assembly in Chicago next October. Yeah.
Well, that's good. No, my heart is still there. I was missioned to Star of the Sea, and I don't know, for those that are not familiar with Chicago, 63rd Street had several of our convents all down one street. There's St. Rita's, Star of the Sea, and St. Nick's of Talentine. So we had a very close relationship with each other. In fact, we used to share a film night.
Right.
One would rent the film and pass it on to the next group and so on. So we spent a lot of time at each other's convents, visiting with one another and having each other over. So I would say probably that was the place we made our best friends at First Mission. And it was a difficult mission, but we were very fortunate. I lived with many, many beautiful women at that time that I will never forget. And then to this day are still friends.
Now you came to Detroit, or you came to Michigan. When and for what reason? Why did you leave the place you love so well?
Well, I was sent out of Chicago. I was asked to come on a Friday night. I was told that I was going to be sent to Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa. So I was sent out to a very small convent after being with 19 nuns. It was very, very hard adjustment. There were only 4 at that convent. And Sister Richard Ray was the superior and principal at that time. She had, that was a real experience. We were used to being given 1 grade. Out there, I had 3 grades in one day. And she thought it was a good experience for us to go like from first grade and then part of the day. And then another part of the day, we might be in 6th grade or 8th grade. And so I taught 3 grades at one time. And the adaptability of that, while it was hard, it was really a good experience. And I think that's one of the things I owe to my experience in the community is to be able to adapt, to new situations and just make it a part of our lives. And I think that it's helped us in our old age also.
Right.
And then Janet Michael replaced Sister Richard Ray, and God rest her soul. Janet it was like night and day difference. And Janet and I clicked. Janet was very artistic and very prayerful woman that many people probably have in later years experienced with her. We had time on the weekends to go and paint. We would go out and work in the fields up there. Our convent was built right in a cornfield.
Okay.
Put up right in the center of a cornfield. So we had a lot of time with the farm people, very, very good people. I loved my years there. But I went in at Christmas for the ring, and I did ask Mother Genevieve at the time if I could come back to the city because I really missed it. I found it very hard.
Mhm.
And again, I returned to Chicago, and there I stayed until I came back to Detroit because my niece had given birth to a very, very sick child, and they were financially strapped. They were newly married, and they had this baby that needed
Mhm.
help. So I came home and with my other sisters learned the nursing skills to take care of the child and help out. So that's really was the reason I returned. I
Very
can't
interesting.
say that I ever left Chicago. I think it's still holds a very special place in my heart.
Good. And I'm sure a lot of the sisters, if they're still alive, are over at Maria, or you remember from there. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So once at the last few years, you've had a different ministry, which I think is very unique. And what was that when you started working for Nokomis and Great Lakes chapter? What was your ministry at that time?
Well, I had worked in daycare,
Okay.
newborn daycare, and I did enjoy that very much. Um, I became what they call the lead teacher, and that was working with the young girls that were assisting in the rooms with the children. So my teaching skills were very, very beneficial at that time. And I love that work. I really enjoyed it, but it got to be too hard. And at that time, I was considering, having to move on when I got a call to come and assist in the office with you
Mhm.
to assist. Well, I think it started out to be office assistant.
Right.
We happily received the privilege of being able to go out and help our women prepare to go into Adrian. And I think without a doubt, that was the most blessed part of my ministry years.
Wow.
The time that I was able to sit with the women, share a cup of coffee, hear the stories that they told, funny and sad, but to hear them express what they found the most difficult part of religious life and what were the best things out of it. And I think that happy balance really helped me to kind of change my attitude towards growing old in the congregation. They went through very, very difficult times in many instances, and many, many held bitterness in their heart. But I think those times over a cup of coffee, they freed themselves of that feeling of bitterness and anger. And I always think I never see a Lorna Doone cookie when I don't think of certain sister that we shared the coffee with, and they would say, "It's time we need to take a break. We need to take a break." And those breaks provided me with a wisdom and an appreciation of the congregation that I never had up until that time. It certainly became very meaningful to me in my life. I love our women. I loved the opportunities that we shared together. And I think that to be able to prepare them just to get their things ready and the stories that they told, and something that maybe just meant nothing to be put in a box meant a whole lot to them. And to see them have to separate from that, see them have their cars taken away, and that feeling of I can no longer be meaningful, I can no longer participate. So, but that's a wealth of information that I hold in my heart, and it's very dear to me.
You should write a book.
Well, I often have thought of that because I think those are, sometimes I hear critical things said about a sister, but I think you didn't know her heart. Maybe you didn't know the pain. No. And maybe I love the storytelling. I like to be able to sit and just hear the things that were, spoken so bitterly maybe, but in the end of the conversation, maybe a change of heart that came about, or a forgiveness of themselves or others.
So it was very transformative for the sister as well as for yourself. And I don't think you'll ever realize the power of your presence at those times with our women. They trusted you explicitly and that's who you are. Yeah. So as I say, and I ask, how do you want to be remembered? How would you respond to that?
I think to be the listener, to be a good listener. Sometimes that's all people need. I think that that goes back to that, be a doer and a hearer. And I think to be for somebody the way they want me to be for them, not the way I think I should be for them. And I think that was the secret, to that ministry, to just be there, hear the pain, hear the laughter, and rejoice with them and be sad with them. There were many tears shed, both by myself and those sisters, when they would tell their stories, because we were always up and at them. People always saw us as ready to teach, ready to be there, to be in place. But we never knew sometimes the hurt that went with that person.
Right. And we only know a bit through this sister story. We're careful of what we're going to say on the when people view this, but you express so tenderly and so beautifully and so sacred of your relationship with our women. And that was a tremendous ministry to those in leadership, that we could not tend to some of that. And perhaps the women were much more open to one of their own. They just felt much more comfortable. But we don't always feel comfortable with everyone. So Dolores, I just thank you profusely, because I know I was the recipient of some of that. And so was our chapter, the Great Lakes chapter, and the little bit of Nokomis as well, and what you brought through your presence. So you stand tall as you look back at your ministry, and you're preaching right now. Your willingness to tell your story is another form of preaching, and you certainly have been a preacher by your life. Is there something about you that we'd be surprised about?
I'm a carpenter. I love to build. I've built furniture. I love to ski. I skate. I've been incapacitated recently, with problems with my walking, but I love the outdoors. I love the Michigan weather and the cold, and I love snow.
Where might the Spirit be leading you at this time?
Well, as far as the Spirit is concerned, I think I live the Spirit. I don't, when people say, what is the Spirit? What is He telling you, or what is she telling you? Yeah. I think it's just being who I am. If there's a situation, I do it. Right now, I think just in this community of the people that we've helped here, I have, before the pandemic, I was able to assist in the nearby school, helping teachers. And many times it was just bringing papers home to be checked, or helping them in their classroom with certain things. But again, a lot of it is teaching skills. I still share the skills that I was gifted with by our women, because I had the training of some fantastic teachers. And I am blessed when I see, I have a niece that went through, through an education course, being a teacher. And I think of what we had that was just gifted to us that we didn't even at the time appreciate, but the skills of our women and the how they mentored children. My life has been truly blessed by that.
I'm just overwhelmed at your story. I didn't, as long as I've known you, I didn't realize some of the sharing that you just gave us. Is there anything else that you want to say? I am going to check that we get Margaret Ringel's name out of there, because you're using that computer. I don't want them to think you're Margaret Ringel, because there's only Dolores. There's only one Delores DeBets.
Yes, you're right.
So, but is there anything else you wish I had asked?
Probably not. I think I'm not a person who is very easily able to tell the story. I don't know. I guard the privacy of a lot of things in my own life and the life of others. So I think that maybe the people really don't know who I am. And I don't say that that's their fault. Maybe it's that we do that. We have a pretense about us that we have to be something. We have to be on our feet and at it. And I think that pretense sometimes I find very difficult because I don't think we know one another well enough. But I think that's what I enjoyed that ministry so much for, is that the honesty and being able to share my story. Mm-hmm. I was nervous about this. I didn't want to do this.
But you said yes immediately. And I must say, I was taken aback when you said, because you know what? Years. I've been after some people for a couple years. So I was very grateful. And just know that you're sharing your story was a form of preaching for the rest of us. Because it was a part of you we didn't know.
Yeah. I didn't. Well, you probably know from having worked with me that if it's on my brain, it's on my tongue. And sometimes it doesn't always come out very nice.
Well, listen,
that's the honesty that I believe the world needs right now. We need to say how we really feel and be accepted for how we feel. The political dissension in this country, I think, tells us that we need to relook at who we are and what we say and how we do it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. This was a privilege, and I mean that sincerely, to be able to share this with you and that you were honest with us. And I just have to get that image out of my mind. What did you put in Belle-Isle or where was it?
Rinso soap. It was beautiful. The fountain looked more beautiful than it is now.
All right, quiet. Oh, God bless you, Dolores. And I'll get back with you at some point. I'll get back with you at some point tonight. I have to do some maneuverings to get this over to Scott. So thank you ever so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Good luck on your movie.